mean that they are mahram for one another. Marriageable kin means they are able to marry each other. So the word ajnabiyain would be the dual form or the muthanna form of ajnabiyun. And ajnabiyun is often translated as a stranger, but it basically means somebody that you can get married to. So two adults, ajnabiyain, who are of marriageable kin, they can get married to each other, min ghayri ha'ilin, without a barrier. So this is why we said basharatay, that's skin on skin, the skin of a man on the skin of a woman. Obviously, ha'il, a barrier, could be of any form, whether that be a barrier of clothing. So if a man knocks his arm accidentally on the arm of a woman, for example, but they have clothes on, that wouldn't break the wudu. If they were to touch and hold hands with gloves on, for example, that wouldn't break the wudu. So here, considering the fact that it says touch, there's no mention of lust, there's no mention of intimate touch, there's no mention of exceptions. This means, according to this condition, or according to this factor, any touch, right? Any touch of skin on skin, of a man to a woman, who are of marriageable kin, meaning even if they are married, so a husband and a wife is married, so that means they are of marriageable kin. So their touching, according to the Shafi'i school, would break the wudu, even if it is a touch without desire, and Allah knows best. Of course, I'm sure, as most Muslims know, that there are differences of opinion among the scholars of the four madhahib on this particular point. So there are other opinions. So don't be surprised if something differs to what you've heard before. But what we are teaching here is the Shafi'i school of thought. So let us understand that point. So now we move on to the fourth point. Let's just see from the notes if there's anything that we can add of benefit, inshallah ta'ala. It says, number 3, skin-to-skin contact between an adult, non-mahram, marriageable in other words, male and female, without any barrier. So let's look at notes 36 and 37. Adult means the age that usually stirs up sexual desire in a person. And number 37, he says the wudu will break even if they touch without sexual desire or unintentionally, and even if it be with the tongue or malfunctional surplus limb. Touching does not include contact with teeth, nails, hair, or a severed limb. Wudu is also broken by touching an aged person or a corpse of the opposite sex, and Allah knows best. So that was number 3. التقاء بشرتي رجل وامرأة كبيرين أجنبيين من غير حائل. Now we know 3 of the 4. The first one, anything that exits the front or rear private part. The second one, a lapse or pause in one's consciousness. Number 3, the touching of skin to skin for 2 adults who are of marriageable kin. And then number 4 is touching a human private part with the inside of one's hand. So let's look at number 4 in detail, inshallah. Massu, the touching, kubulin, of the front private part, al-adamiyyi, of a human, أو حلقة دبر, or rather حلقة دبره, or the circle of his rear private part, meaning the anus, ببطن الراحة, with the inside of one's palm, أو بطون الأصابع, or the inside of one's fingers. So firstly, he says مس قبل الآدمي, touching in general, touching the front private part of a human. أو حلقة دبره, or now he specifies the anus of the rear private part. In other words, not what we refer to as the cheeks or the fleshy part of the rear private part. That doesn't break one's ablution, but the part from which human excrement exits. And then he specifies ببطن راحة أو بطون الأصابع, where the insides of one's palms or the insides of one's fingers. So to make it easy, basically understand this from the aspect of whatever touches when you put your 2 hands together. If you put your 2 hands together, the parts that touch one another, that is the limitations or the limits that govern what would break the ablution, inshallah ta'ala, to make it easier for us to understand. Let's look at the text and see what he says in the notes here. Number 4, touching the private parts of a human with the palm or inner surface of the fingers, right? So there you have it. Now, proceeding from this point, let's look at a summary of this entire section bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Al-Wudu, right, the ablution. You have your shurut, your conditions, your furud, your integrals or obligatory acts, and you have your sunan, your recommended acts. Right, we've covered all of this. I'm going to leave this table to you as a means of revision